Hello, and good morning, or good evening, or good whatever the heck time it is where you currently are in the world. If you missed the last episode, please do me a favor, go back and check it out. But this right here is the Howdy Boxster.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
This car belongs to customer Mike, super awesome guy. He lives in the greater Dallas area, and he trailered this vehicle all the way up to Columbus, Ohio to have a mechanical restoration done on her. This thing is a pretty sweet little peach. This thing only has 54,000 miles on the clock. This is a 2002 model year car, which means that it is now 23 years old. And even though it only has 54,000 miles on it, timing chain guides do break down because they are falling under that umbrella of aging rubbers and plastics. So he has definitely been seeing evidence of those timing chain guides breaking down. He decided it's time to go ahead and get a little bit of an engine mechanical restoration done on it, and he came to Water Cool Restoration. So thank you so much for that, Mike. Very much appreciate your business. So we got the engine and transmission out in the last episode, but the work has just begun because it is now time to start digging into this engine and rejuvenating her, which is going to be super satisfying. Timing chain guides, lifters, and a bunch of other while you're in there. But for now, we gotta start tickling on these transmission bolts to get this engine and transmission separated before we can actually do any of this work, because we gotta get that engine up on a stand. Let's get to tickling.
Go back. Drop in and just smack the bah!
Well, good news, party planners. As you just saw, we got the transmission separated off the engine. Everything went really nice and smoothly there. Upon quick analysis of the clutch, pressure plate, and flywheel, everything looks very, very good, which that will make Mike very, very pleased, because we are hoping to be able to rerun the clutch, pressure plate, and flywheel, because it seems like these aren't too terribly old. The flywheel has a little bit more play than I'd like to see, but it honestly feels very good. Feels like it still has plenty of damping left in it. The flywheel and the pressure plate both have some heat scoring on them, but hey, it's part of the clutch system. That stuff gets hot, you'll have that, not a make or break thing. Plus, she does have an Ellen Engineering IMS bearing in it, which is a very good thing to see. So obviously, this car has been very nicely maintained over time. Off camera, I did go ahead and get Mike's engine up on the stand, as you can see. One thing that I noticed that is kind of interesting with regards to this engine though, and I mentioned this engine has been out before. Obviously, it has had an IMS bearing in it, so we know at least the transmission's been out, but because of the witness marks on the bolts, it does seem that the engine has been out as well. The valve covers have been off, it seems. That is not the factory RTV, a little bit too imperfect to be the factory job. So the question is, were they in there replacing something because something serious broke, or were they in there just resealing the valve covers, which they did poorly, by the way, because they're both leaking terribly. So that'll be interesting to find out what is going on underneath those valve covers, if we can find any evidence of parts that have been replaced over time, and obviously the big elephant in the room, and that is, what the heck are these timing chain guides going to look like? Obviously, there is evidence of them in the oil filter, so it'll be interesting to see just how bad they actually are. So I'm gonna stop talking. It's officially time to get into doing the big work. Let's do it. Well, friends and fellow enthusiasts, just a quick reminder that the first ever Sign Seekers Driving Club Drive is coming up in just a few weeks on September 13th, and is taking place in southeastern Ohio in the Hocking Hills region, which honestly features some of the greatest driving roads in North America. No joke, no yeah, no yeah. This is just gonna be a day drive for several hours, and then enjoy a nice lunch together with all of our fellow enthusiasts. What the heck is the Sign Seekers Driving Club, you might be asking? Well, it is a brand new nonprofit organization, social club, that allows us fellow driving enthusiasts to get together, get in our super sweet fun rides, get out on some of the best roads in the country, enjoy the camaraderie of our fellow enthusiasts, and be able to give back. Now, this is a completely free event, by the way, no entry fee whatsoever, but of course we are accepting donations, and if you want to purchase a t-shirt, they are available at sign up or over at funaheadtv.com. All proceeds and donations go directly to the pediatric cancer research portion of the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. Now that is a pretty sweet way to go ahead and give back through your hobby. Now this is an attendance limited event, and there are currently only 3 spots available as of the time of filming this here segment. So if you're at all interested and you live anywhere near the southeastern part of Ohio, definitely get yourself on over to motorsportreg.com, get yourself signed up, link in the description below, I hope to see you there. Also, I just want to give a huge shout out to my buddy Jackson. He is one of the younger subscribers of Fun Ahead TV, and he is, I believe, 10 years old. And he recently got a 3D printer and made me this. How cool is that? A Porsche emblem. So I've got it hung up front and center in the shop for everyone to see all the time. I really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much. All right, people, just cracking open a ice cold LaCroix because it is freaking hot outside. Plus, these things just hit for a nice little midday treat. You know what I'm talking about? Going with lime today. Anyway, as you can see, we have Mike's engine completely torn down as far as we're going to take it. Both cylinder heads are taken down, and I already went ahead and just took the sump off as well, because that is always part of that cleaning, because whenever you have plastic bits floating around your engine, they inherently always get up in your oil pickup. It's never a bad idea to go ahead, take your sump down, clean up any plastic pieces that are in there, and clean off that pickup screen as well, which we will do in a little bit here. Anyway, for now, it is time to analyze some parts, which is good because you're probably wondering, what exactly does a 54,000 mile M96 engine look like? Is it time or mileage that breaks these things down? Well, good news is we do have some Varicam pads to analyze and some other stuff as well. Let's go ahead and start getting into analyzing. Now, before we take the Varicam pads out from between the cams, I do just want to show you guys one thing. This pad material color, this lighter color, is consistent with the newer updated material. As you can see, when you look at the Bank 2, it does have a much darker brown plastic. Comparing these two, yep, okay. So that means this is the original material. We will actually be able to see what the 54,000 mile pads look like. All right, well, I just went ahead and extracted our Varicam solenoids from between our cams. Now we can go ahead and analyze everything. By the way, in order to do that, like I mentioned, you do need special tool 9632. That's for the later models. That's the left-hand thread design. And for the earlier models up to 2000 model year, you need a right-hand thread tool. That's Porsche tool 9631. I do sell both of those on my website, funaheadtv.com. So if you need one, hit me up. It's on my website. Just a general note before we start analyzing individual pieces and parts. When you look across this table, you can see that a lot of these parts kind of have a bronzing to them. They've turned brown for basically all the parts that are facing the inside of this engine, which is, you know, just about everything. All the metals, basically, cams, secondary oil pumps, inside or underside of the valve covers. That is an indication that this car has, at one point in its life, had pretty extended oil change intervals. The oil stayed in this engine for a long time, and that it has been run pretty hot. That just kind of means that the oil got hot and it kind of just turns brown like that, and it kind of just discolors the metal on the inside of the engine. That bronzing doesn't damage anything, but it does mean that your oil has potentially kind of broken down a little bit too much. You let it go a little too long in the engine. I'm not saying Mike in particular. This could have very well happened before he owned the car. But if this is happening to your car, then maybe just consider changing your oil a little bit more often. Put a little bit higher quality oil in your engine. AMSOIL is always a good choice, by the way, just saying. Okay, let's start out by analyzing part of the reason for the season, and that is the hydraulic lifters. Now, of course, these don't fail super duper often, but they are obviously a pain to get to. You literally have to take the engine down to this level in order to access them. So you might as well just change them out while you're in here doing this. If they fail, then you can hear a nice ticking sound every single time that cam lobe comes around and pushes this thing down, because there's play inside of it. What happens is basically the seals inside of this break down and don't hold oil inside of them anymore. And then this inner part, which is supposed to take up the slack between the cam and the top of the valve, no longer is able to hold any pressure, and it can just push in. Now, I did check all of these as I brought them back to the workshop, and they are all holding pressure. We are just gonna go ahead and replace them while we're in there, obviously, because they are, what, 23 years old? Okay, now, primary timing chain guides. Idler side for bank 1, you can see we've got some marks up towards the top there. That's pretty normal. And you can see some minor score marks up and down the guide overall. The tensioner side is usually what has more wear to it. And yeah, you can see up towards the top here. Yep, that's kind of a pressure point on these, so they wear a little bit more up there. Overall, not too bad. Bank 2 actually looked a little bit worse. Let's see, which one was it? Yeah, this idler one is not too terribly bad. Actually, no, it does have some marks all the way up and down it, and it has a similar patch up there towards the top as bank one. This tensioner side is the worst of the four. You can see that all the way up and down this thing, it's got some level of pitting or scoring.
Drop down, snap.
Overall, this is not bad though. I mean, these are just tiny, tiny bits. So really nothing to write home about, but you know, nonetheless, this is wear, and good thing we're gonna go ahead and replace that. Okay, continuing on with timing chain guides, let's take a look at the Variocam pads. Like I said, Bank 1's Variocam pads have obviously been replaced because they are the lighter brown material. This was not the factory material of these. Therefore, you can tell because of the way it is.
Because of the way it is.
That these have been replaced. So they don't really have any wear whatsoever. You can tell where the chain has been running, but there's no amount of chunking or scoring. I mean, I can kind of, if I put my fingernail in it, feel that there's some undulation, but no, these are for all intents and purposes still perfect. But obviously we'll replace them because we're here. And lastly, the real reason for the season, the Bank 2 Variocam guides, starting with the one that is not lubricated. We can see a decent amount of pitting, not awful. We've definitely seen way worse, but yeah, there's definitely some pitting coming out of that. And the other side, the lubricated side, oh boy. Yeah, there's a lot of material that has been taken out of this. These are supposed to be completely flat. We've definitely seen way worse, but that's on its way to being pretty ugly down the road. So this therefore is extremely interesting because we asked the question at the beginning of this video, at the beginning of this series rather, is it age or mileage that's hardest on these? And I think this is the clear answer, that age is the bigger factor. This is a 54,000 mile engine, and this pad looks as bad as some that I've taken out of 100+ thousand mile engines. Now, there of course are many factors that could play into that. Like we said, we did find that this engine possibly had some longer oil change intervals at some point in its life. That could have contributed. But regardless, the bigger thing here is that no matter what, plastics age over time. They get more brittle when they age. Plus, this is on the inside of the engine, which means that it heat cycles every single time the engine runs. That then just accelerates how brittle this plastic is, which therefore causes it to break down that much more. So then, very potentially, time is the bigger factor here. One more critical bit of evidence that I think kind of bodes well for time being the bigger factor is that Porsche themselves said this design was okay. Things like this and the intermediate shaft bearing were both things that in the 90s, when they were developing these parts, they signed off on. They said it was okay. And having spent almost a decade of my career as an engineer in a powertrain development department doing engine development, I can kind of see where they were coming from. They had a bunch of test cars out doing a bunch of durability testing, racking up all sorts of miles over several years of development. And then at the end, they tear those cars down, look at all the parts and say, okay or not okay. Obviously, that is a highly simplified breakdown of what happens with regards to durability testing during an engine development. Now, whether they knew there was a problem with this and the IMS bearing or not and still said okay, that's up for debate. But for one reason or another, they said, yep, ship it, build tens of thousands of cars with these exact parts, it'll be fine. That therefore tells me that after all of their development mileage, these parts didn't show excessive wear. They had the luxury of putting all sorts of mileage on parts, but they didn't have the luxury of putting time on parts. Now, there are ways to simulate age of plastics. Whether they did that or not, I don't know, but we do know that during the 986, 996 development, they were trying to save money. So that does kind of seem like the kind of thing that they wouldn't have done if it was going to cost extra and if they had reason to believe that these parts were totally okay based on what they looked like after all the mileage they racked up. Anyway, I know that's a rant, but that's just kind of where my head goes because people ask me all the time, like, dude, IMS bearing, what were they thinking? They had their reasons, okay? And they were trying to save money. Obviously, it didn't work out for them, but they obviously had some data to show that designs like this and like the IMS bearing were okay at one point in time. So therefore, rant concluded, but just know if you do own a 5-chain M96 engine and this has not been done to it, go ahead and check your oil filter next time you do an oil change and see if you have any brown plastic bits in there. Odds are that you do, and if you do, you might want to consider getting this done soon. And if you're considering buying one of these cars, well, set aside a little bit of extra cash to have this job done preventatively because if this does end up happening and this goes too far, things can get pretty weird. And lastly, let's check out our sump. So I took the sump down so that we can do a thorough cleaning of the inside of this sump, and that's the reason right there. When you look at our pickup screen, you can see some of the timing chain guide bits, and that is oftentimes where the bigger bits end up because they're too big to fit through the screen and make their way onto the oil filter. But obviously just these few little bits wouldn't cause any kind of oil pressure issues. Nonetheless, we are gonna go ahead, take this pickup down, give that screen a good cleaning so that Mike's engine is gonna flow really nicely like brand new once again. And then lastly, looking at the very bottom of the sump, nothing too concerning here, but we do in fact see 4 pretty large bits of timing chain guide down in there. So anyway, we'll clean this thing up, get it really nice and spotless, be able to put it back on the car. And then this sump is going to look brand new. Well, folks, we are going to go ahead and call it here for today. We have the engine exactly at the halfway point, and we did a ton of parts analysis, and we learned a lot in that process because we learned that time is in fact the bigger factor, seemingly, than mileage when it comes to these ding-dang VarioCam pads. It is unfortunate, but hey, it is kind of just what it is. So if you own a 5-chain M96 powered Porsche and you are seeing those brown bits in your oil filter after an oil change, you might want to consider getting your timing chain guides done at some point because they're only going to get worse, unfortunately. But hey, I'm not trying to be a fearmonger like many out on the internet. I'm just saying that is the situation that your car is in because they are all now about a quarter century old. Anyway, I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do me a huge favor and hit that like button, and please subscribe if you haven't already so you can see this thing back on the road, ripping down it in next week's episode, and you can catch more super awesome car content coming on the pipeline to you via Fun Ahead TV every single week. So thank you again so much for being here. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Yes, you, I'm looking right at you, and I will see you all in next week's episode. Later.
Drop in and just smack the